There is a tree growing across the American South and Midwest that hits 20 feet of height in its first year from a stump. It regrows after being cut to the ground. It survives wildfire because its roots outlast anything burning above them. It reaches harvest size in 5 years. Its wood is harder than pine and lighter than oak. Its leaves contain more protein than alfalfa, and virtually every part of it has a documented use in timber, forage, food, or medicine. America calls it a weed. The United States Forest Service lists it as one of the worst invasive species in the country. It is pulled, sprayed, and condemned by land managers from Virginia to Texas. Entire budgets are allocated to its removal. And the irony is that the rest of the world is actively cultivating it. China grows it on over 1 million acres for timber and biomass. Japan has used it for centuries in construction and traditional crafts. Europe is scaling commercial plantations. And American researchers, when they look past the invasive label long enough to study it properly, consistently find a plant of extraordinary economic potential being systematically destroyed in the one country that has the most of it growing wild. Welcome to Everyday Harvest. Today we are covering the Empress Tree, Paulownia tomentosa, and its commercial relatives, what it actually is, why America declared war on it, what the rest of the world knows that we do not, and what it means for growers and landowners with marginal land and a long enough time horizon to see an opportunity where most people see a problem. Let us get into it. The Empress Tree is native to central and western China, where it has been cultivated for over 3,000 years. In China, a Paulownia tree was traditionally planted at the birth of a daughter, and when she came of age to marry, the mature tree was harvested and crafted into furniture and household items that formed part of her dowry. The Japanese called it kiri and reserved its timber for the most prestigious applications: imperial household furniture, the bodies of traditional koto musical instruments, and ceremonial wooden sandals for Shinto priests. This is not a plant that slipped through history unnoticed. It has one of the longest documented cultivation histories of any hardwood tree in the world. The question of why America treats it as a nuisance while Asia treats it as a treasure requires understanding both what the tree actually is and how it arrived here, how it got here, and why it spread. Paulownia arrived in North America in the 1840s as an ornamental tree. Its spectacular lavender trumpet flowers, large leaves, and rapid growth made it popular in gardens and along streets in the eastern United States. Then it began to escape cultivation. A single mature tree produces up to 20 million seeds annually, tiny winged seeds dispersed by wind and water across wide distances. They germinate readily in disturbed soil, roadsides, embankments, cleared land, and post-fire sites. Once established, Paulownia grows at a rate no native North American tree can match, shading out slower-growing species and dominating disturbed sites with competitive intensity that alarmed ecologists. By the late 20th century, it was spreading along the Appalachian corridor from Pennsylvania to Georgia. The USDA classified it as invasive, and land managers began treating it as a problem to be eradicated. That classification was not without ecological merit. Unmanaged Paulownia in recovering forest can displace native pioneer species and alter successional trajectories for decades. But the response threw out something extraordinary along with the problem, because the same characteristics that make Paulownia competitive in the wild make it arguably the most productive timber and biomass tree available to landowners in the eastern United States. The distinction between an invasive weed and a managed crop is not a biological distinction, it is a management distinction. The growth rate. The growth rate of Paulownia is so far outside the normal range of temperate hardwood trees that most people assume the numbers are exaggerated. They are not. Commercial hybrid varieties, particularly the oxy tree and 9501 hybrids developed for plantation use, routinely achieve 15 to 20 feet of vertical growth in their first growing season from established rootstock. A 1-year-old commercial Paulownia planting frequently reaches heights that would take an oak 20 years to achieve.
Trunk diameter reaches 8 to 12 inches within 5 years, decades of oak growth compressed into a single rotation. The biological explanation is cellular. Paulownia wood is composed of exceptionally large vessel cells that allow rapid water and nutrient transport, a structural characteristic that enables growth rates impossible in denser-celled hardwoods. This same structure produces wood that is paradoxically light for its hardness, harder than pine, similar to poplar, and significantly lighter than oak, making it structurally useful while remaining easy to work and transport. The coppicing characteristic amplifies this further. When a Paulownia tree is cut, harvested, frost-damaged, or burned, the established root system immediately redirects stored energy into new shoot growth. Coppiced Paulownia frequently grows faster in its second rotation than its first because the root system that took years to develop is fully established and capable of supporting accelerated regrowth from day one. A plantation planted today is not a one-time crop. It is a regenerating resource that produces multiple harvests from a single root investment. The timber. Paulownia timber occupies a unique and commercially valuable position in the hardwood market. It is the lightest commercial hardwood in the world by density, approximately half the weight of oak at comparable dimensions, while maintaining structural rigidity sufficient for furniture, flooring, door and window frames, and interior paneling. Its grain is straight and consistent. It mills cleanly, accepts stains and finishes readily, and produces a fine surface requiring minimal finishing work. In Japan, kiri commands premium prices in the luxury furniture market. Kiri tansu, traditional Paulownia chests, are heirloom pieces selling for thousands of dollars. The wood's low thermal conductivity protects stored objects from temperature extremes. Its extremely low moisture absorption makes it dimensionally stable under varying humidity, ideal for drawer construction and storage furniture. The global Paulownia timber market is valued at over $20 billion and growing at approximately 8% annually, driven by demand from China, Japan, South Korea, and European markets seeking fast-growing sustainable alternatives to tropical hardwoods. North American Paulownia timber, harvested from managed plantations and sold into export markets, commands between $500 and $1,500 per thousand board feet, depending on grade. A mature 5-year plantation produces 500 to 1,000 board feet per tree, returns per acre that no conventional hardwood species approaches on the same timeline.
The fire resistance. Paulownia leaves have an exceptionally high moisture content, and the bark contains compounds that resist combustion at temperatures that would ignite most other tree species. In wildfire scenarios, Paulownia trees have been documented surviving fire events that destroyed surrounding vegetation, then immediately re-sprouting from root systems that the fire could not reach. The coppice response to fire is identical to the response to cutting, vigorous, rapid regrowth from a fully established root system. For landowners in fire-prone areas, this characteristic has implications beyond timber production. A Paulownia planting positioned strategically across a landscape functions as a living fire break. Vegetation significantly less likely to carry fire than surrounding species, and that recovers faster than any competing vegetation after a fire event. No other commercial timber species offers this combination of productivity and fire adaptation. The leaves as forage. Dried Paulownia leaves contain between 17 and 23% crude protein on a dry matter basis, exceeding most conventional hay crops and approaching the protein content of alfalfa. They are palatable to cattle, goats, sheep, and rabbits, and have been used as supplemental protein feed in Asian and European silvopastoral systems for centuries. A silvopastoral approach integrating Paulownia into a managed grazing system allows the same land to simultaneously produce timber appreciating over 5 years and annual leaf harvests supplementing livestock feed costs throughout the growing season. The emerging plant-based protein processing market is also an emerging buyer category.
Dried paulownia leaf protein content places it squarely in the range that manufacturers seeking domestic plant protein sources beyond soy and pea are actively looking for. The flowers and bees. Paulownia flowers, the lavender trumpet clusters emerging before the leaves in early spring, are a major nectar source for honeybees during the critical early spring period when few other major nectar sources are available. Paulownia honey, produced almost exclusively in China and Japan, where managed plantations double as apiary sites, is a light-colored, mild-flavored monofloral honey commanding premium prices in specialty markets. For beekeepers in regions where Paulownia grows, the early spring nectar flow represents a significant colony-building resource when winter-weakened colonies need it most. The integration of Paulownia with apiary management is practiced extensively in Asia and is an essentially unexplored opportunity in North America. The remediation capacity. Paulownia is one of a small number of trees capable of productive growth on severely degraded, contaminated, or nutrient-depleted land that cannot support conventional crops. Its deep root system breaks up compacted subsoils. It improves nitrogen content through bacterial associations. Its leaf litter is high in calcium and potassium, building surface fertility over successive rotations. Studies on mine spoil reclamation sites, former industrial land, and heavily eroded agricultural land consistently find Paulownia establishing and growing productively in conditions where most commercial timber species fail entirely. For landowners with degraded property generating no agricultural income, a Paulownia planting is a pathway to revenue from land conventional agriculture has written off, while simultaneously improving that land's long-term productive capacity.
The case for managed cultivation. The distinction American land management policy has largely failed to make is between unmanaged Paulownia spreading by seed into natural areas and managed plantation cultivation, where seed production is controlled. Commercial hybrid varieties are either sterile or produce significantly reduced seed viability compared to wild Paulownia tomentosa. A managed plantation harvested on a 5-year coppice rotation produces no meaningful seed rain into surrounding natural areas and generates the economic returns that give landowners a genuine alternative to the extractive land uses, logging, overgrazing, abandonment, that create the disturbed site conditions wild Paulownia colonizes in the first place. This is exactly the argument that drove large-scale commercial development in China, Japan, and Europe. A tree this productive, managed correctly, is too valuable to waste on a blanket invasive species designation that ignores the fundamental difference between the plant in an ecological context and the plant in an agronomic one. How to grow it. Start with variety selection. Wild Paulownia tomentosa is not the variety to plant for commercial production. Hybrid varieties, including Paulownia elongata, the 9501 hybrid, and the oxy tree, have been selected for faster growth, superior timber quality, and cold hardiness to USDA Zone 5. Paulownia grows best in full sun in deep, well-draining soil with a pH between 5.5 and 8.5. It does not tolerate waterlogged conditions. Root rot in wet soils is its primary vulnerability. It requires no irrigation after establishment in most eastern U.S. climates and minimal fertilization. A balanced application at planting and a nitrogen top dressing in year 2 is sufficient for maximum growth rates. Planting spacing for timber production is 10 to 15 feet between trees. Tighter spacing produces taller, cleaner timber logs with less lateral branching. Wider spacing develops more crown volume and leaf biomass, the preference for combined timber and forage systems. Pruning lateral branches below 15 feet in the first 2 growing years concentrates growth into the main trunk and improves timber grade by reducing knots. After the 5-year harvest, the root system immediately produces coppice shoots. Select the strongest 2 to 3 and remove all others, a process called singling, to concentrate regrowth into the shoots that become the next rotation's timber trees. The second rotation grows faster than the first. The economics improve with every cycle.
America calls it a weed because it showed up uninvited, grew faster than anything expected, and spread into places where it was not wanted. Those are the characteristics of an invasive species in an ecological context. They are also the characteristics of the most productive timber tree in the temperate world in an agronomic context. The rest of the world made a different choice. China planted 1 million acres. Japan built a cultural tradition around it. Europe is scaling commercial operations, and across the American South and Midwest, millions of acres of wild Paulownia are being destroyed, while landowners with marginal and degraded land struggle to find a crop worth growing on it. The gap between what American land managers communicate about Paulownia and what the global timber and agronomy community knows is one of the most striking disconnects in contemporary agriculture. Closing that gap, understanding what this plant actually produces and how managed cultivation differs from unmanaged spread, is what separates landowners who see an opportunity from those who keep pulling it out. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you have Paulownia growing on your property? Have you considered commercial cultivation? Drop your situation in the comments. If this breakdown gave you something to work with, subscribe to Everyday Harvest. We are here every week digging into the plants and opportunities that most people walk past without looking twice. Hit the notification bell so you do not miss the next episode. Now, go look at that tree differently. I will see you in the garden.